What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. Back at Texas Card House for a live stream tonight. 5, 10, 20 mandatory straddle, buying in for $5,000 to start. Let's get right into the first hand. After folding for about 45 minutes, I finally pick up a playable hand with ace-10 offsuit, under the gun +1, raise it to $75. I decided to go a little over 3x with my raise sizes just because the stack sizes are pretty deep and there's 3 blinds. We end up getting 3 callers here, so 4 ways to the flop. Pretty standard here in Texas, even in the higher level games, to have some multi-way pots. 4 ways to a board of king, jack, 9, 2 clubs. We flop a gut shot here and 1 overcard without a club in my hand and not much equity on a board that's going to smash some of my opponent's ranges. I decide to check, and it checks all the way over to the button, who decides to bet. He bets $125, and this particular player can be betting here with a very wide range, so I actually think my ace high can be good here sometimes, so I decide to call given this price. If I hit a queen, I will make a straight, and I do have an overcard, so I make the call. We end up going heads up to the turn, which is the 5 of diamonds. This card does not help me at all, so I check, and if my opponent bets, I will just be folding, but he decides to check this one back, so we're going here to the river, needing some help, which we get. It's the queen of hearts. We end up making the stone cold nuts, and now I have to decide what kind of bet sizing should I use. If he missed his flush draw, he's not going to call any bet. I don't expect him to have a very strong hand whenever he bets the flop and then checks back a brick turn card, so I decided to go with a smaller bet here of $225. Really tried to target his jack X holdings, possibly ace queen holdings as well, or maybe a weaker king. Against this particular player, I could see an over pot size bet being good here sometimes, just because this queen is really going to help him with a lot of 2-pair holdings, and he can also have a weaker straight than mine, like 9-10, jack 10, and king 10, so I can try to go for max value there, but I decided on a $225 bet, and as you guys can see, he only has a jack. He ends up letting this one go. We take down our first pot, making the nuts, playing 5, 10, 20 at Texas Card House on the live stream. Just a little background for this next hand. Galoo had been playing a lot of hands, raising a lot, playing over 50% of the pots here, and Luke has been 3-betting a lot, so whenever Galoo opens up in the hijack to $60, and then Luke 3-bets next to act, I feel like he can be 3-betting here with a wider range of hands, trying to isolate Galoo in position. Luke 3-bets to $180, and the cutoff folds all the way back over to me in the 3rd blind, and I have ace-9 of diamonds, and I feel like this could be a spot for a 4-bet squeeze. Given the fact that Galoo is opening up wide and Luke can be 3-betting him wide, I think I can get a lot of credit here because my image is pretty tight so far, so I decide to go with a 4-bet bluff. I raise it up here, cold 4-bet to $550.
He's facing a 3-bet from Luke, but he is going to put in the 4-bet. He says, Luke, you're fooling around too much tonight.
A little bit.
There it is, and I love it.
The commentators were spot on with their analysis. Luke had been 3-betting a lot, and with my image, I felt like I could get a 4-bet bluff through, which ends up happening. Luke ends up folding his king-queen. We technically did have the best hand, but it's always nice to put in that cold 4-bet with the ace high and get it through. We end up taking down another pot here. This next hand I'd been playing for about 2 hours and I wasn't getting anything going, so I look down at 8-5 of diamonds in the hijack position. A pretty loose open here, but I want to get in there. I make it $75. I get a call from the small blind and a call from the straddle, so going 3 ways to the flop. We flop second pair on a 10 high board. Not a great flop, but not a bad flop. When it checks it over to me, I decide to check this one back. The turn card is the deuce of diamonds. Doesn't help us at all. Checks over to the 3rd blind player, who puts out a bet of $160. I think I can be folding my 8 here a lot of the time, but given this player type, Aho is pretty aggressive. Given the fact that I check back the flop, I think he can be betting here with some flush draws, maybe some overcards, and some straight draws, so I'm not done yet. I decide to make the call for $160. Back over to the small blind, who tanks for a long time and decides to put in a raise. He raises it up huge. $760 check raise here. We are both done with our hand, and Galoo ends up taking down this pot. I hinted about this next hand in the title and the thumbnail, and I was not lying. This hand is the biggest pot I've ever played in my entire life. Let's get into it. I blurred out my opponent's hand so that you guys can sweat with me. There's an early position raise by Galoo to $60. Folds over to Jim, who puts in a 3-bet. He makes it $175. The cutoff calls $175, and the action is over on me, and I look down on the button at pocket aces, the best hand ever created. Oh my god, what a spot to be in. There's an open, a 3-bet, and a call, and I have the best hand ever created, so I am going to be putting in a cold 4-bet here. I re-raise to $600. What I actually forgot to mention is that before this hand, Galoo had won a massive pot and he chipped all the way up to $12,000, which means I could match his stack. So I end up adding on here and I have a stack over $10,000 before I started this hand. I could potentially play an over $20,000 pot here with Galoo if he makes a call. Unfortunately, Galoo didn't have a hand he wanted to call with, so he ends up folding, and now the action is over on Jim, who put in a 3-bet to begin with, and he decides not to fold and not to call. He puts in another re-raise, a 5-bet to $1,800. The cutoff folds pretty quickly. The action's over on me with pocket aces facing a 5-bet. I look over at Jim V's stack and he has about $6,000 to start the hand, which is around 300 big blinds, so I have to figure out what I want to do here. I actually don't have a lot of one-on-one history here with Jim, but I have played it with him on the stream and at Texas Card House a few times, and I've seen him on stream get pretty out of line with some light 3-bets and some light 4-bets. However, I haven't seen him put in many 5-bets, so I feel like he is going to have a strong hand here, but if he does have a bluff, I don't think a 6-bet here is good. I'm just going to fold out all of his bluffing hands, and he might even hero fold jacks or queens to me. So against this aggressive, capable player, I decide to just make the call here. In position with pocket aces, we are already going to the flop in a huge bloated pot, almost $4,000 in the middle. Technically speaking, when my opponent 5-bets here out of position, he should have hands like jacks, queens, kings, aces, and ace-king, but this is Texas Poker on a live stream. You never know what your opponent might have. So when the board comes out, queen, 6, 6, 2 spades is actually a pretty bad board for me. The reason I think this flop could be bad is if my opponent 3-bet pocket queens, I 4-bet on the button, and he thinks I'm getting out of line and might 5-bet pocket queens, he is now beating us with a full house. If he has pocket jacks, he might be scared of the queen. If he has pocket kings, he might be scared I have pocket queens or pocket aces and might slow down. However, he does bet. He down bets here to $900. With all that being said, I think a call here is the best play, so I end up putting in the call for $900. We are still heads up to a massive pot, over $5,000 in the middle, going to the turn, which is the 3 of hearts, a huge brick, and now my opponent with about $4,000 in his stack bets, but he doesn't go all in, he bets $2,000. After this bet, given the fact that he only has about $2,000 left behind, I think I only have one option, and that is all in for $7,000. My opponent makes a snap call. We are playing the biggest pot of my life, $13,600 in the middle. We have pocket aces going to the river, running at one time, which is the 9 of spades, bringing in that front door flush. I show pocket aces. My opponent shows
$15,000 pot. That's going to get shot.
Yep, exactly. Aces be aces, baby.
$135 profit.
Yes, Brent giving us a nice show of it there.
Everybody loves a chop pot. Holy shit, what an adrenaline rush. My heart is beating through my chest, playing an over $13,000 pot with pocket aces. We end up chopping it up against pocket aces. Crazy hand here, pretty wild turn of events here. I actually thought I was going to win this one. I was pretty sure Jim had pocket kings, but we end up chopping it up, making $135 on this hand. So last hand here we're going to go over for the live stream is a pretty interesting one when it folds to Sam Clark Poker and Under the Gun +2, who makes it $75. And what I've seen so far from Sam is he doesn't really get out of line with some speculative hands pre-flop. He's usually pretty strong from early position when he raises, but post-flop he definitely is not afraid to get in there and put in some bluffs and some wild plays. Next to act, Galoo decides to get in there with 6 deuce suited, sitting on over an $11,000 stack, folds to meet in the 3 blind with pocket jacks, and now we have a decision to make. This is close between 3-bet and call. I don't really want to be going heads up out of position against Sam when he has a pretty strong range pre-flop. I also don't want Galoo to fold. I want him in there with all of his crazy trash hands. And if I 3-bet pre-flop here and then Sam 4-bets, Galoo will fold. If I 3-bet and Sam calls, Galoo might fold as well. So I decide to just make the call here with pocket jacks, and we end up going 3 ways to the flop. Queen, 6, 7, all clubs. I check, and Sam Clark Poker decides to check. Now the action is over on Galoo, who does put out a bet. He bets $150, and what I've seen so far from him is he likes to bet whenever checked to. He can be betting here with a wide range of maybe a 6, a 7, a straight draw, a flush draw, so I'm not going to fold my pocket jacks. Given the fact that I have second pair and the jack-eye flush draw, I make the call for $150, and Sam Clark check calls as well, which is a little concerning to me. After there's a bet, I call and Sam calls. I'm probably not good here, especially when the turn card comes out, an ace, which is a pretty terrible card. Now if my opponent was semi-bluffing with an ace of clubs, they now got there, but when it checks all the way to Galoo, he decides to check this one back, going to the river, which is the 3 of hearts. Pretty interesting card. Now I have to decide what I want to do here with my pocket jacks. I start thinking to myself, maybe I can turn my pocket jacks into a bluff, but I have to determine, can I get my opponents to fold? So Galoo bet the flop, and then he checked the turn. I don't expect him to have anything better than a queen X hand. I don't think he'd be checking the turn with a flush, 2-pair, or a set. So if I bet here, I'm pretty sure I could get him to fold a queen, but I also have to get through Sam as well. Sam raised pre-flop and then check called the flop, so I don't expect him to have a very strong hand either, and I actually think he would be c-betting with a lot of his ace-x with the ace of clubs, like ace-jack or ace-king with the ace of clubs, so I don't even think he really has top pair here. He could have a weaker queen like queen-9, queen-10, or queen-jack that he was checking for pot control. Given how the action went, I can have a lot of strong hands on this board. I have the jack of clubs, so I can block a lot of flushes. I can have 2 pairs like ace-6, ace-7. I can have a straight with 4-5, so I decide to turn my pocket jacks into a bluff. Betting big, I make it $700. In real time, I actually thought I was going to get this one through, but unfortunately, we are running right into it. Sam has top 2 pair, and this is why it's important to be a balanced player. Sam check called the flop with top pair, top kicker. I did not think that he had that strong of a hand, which led me to start a bluff. If he would have just bet the flop, I probably would have check called and not put any more money in the pot, or maybe even check folded, but we are running into it. Our bluff is not going to work this time. He makes the call. I tell him you're good. He ends up taking down the pot. That is it for this session. End up losing $875 on the live stream and calling it a night. I hope you guys didn't think the poker was over. We are back here 2 days later on a Friday night playing up on the live stream table, but tonight there is no cameras, just a big stakes game, 5, 10, 20 with a mandatory straddle. We end up buying in for $4,000. This first hand we end up playing with the biggest spot at the table. This guy's playing a lot of hands. He says he's a self-proclaimed fish at poker. Doesn't know what he's doing, just trying to come here and have some fun. We call his raise with jack 4 of spades and end up flopping a flush on 10, 7, 8 all spades. He checks it to me and I put out a bet of $30 and he check calls. The turn card pairs the board. It is the 8 of hearts. He checks, and I am not going to stop betting with my jack-high flush. I put out a bet of $85, and he pretty quickly makes the call, going to the river, which is an offsuit deuce, and now I have to bet, but I don't want to bet too big. I want him to call with all of his 10x hands, maybe pocket 9s, a 7, so I put out a bet of $125, and he pretty quickly makes the call. I show my jack-high flush, and it is good. It's always fun winning the first hand. This next one is pretty interesting when there's a straddle on for 20, a call from the fishy player in early position. I have ace-5 of diamonds in the hijack position and raise to $100. Folds to the button who puts in a 3-bet. He makes it $300. The action folds back over to me, and I will give you guys a description of the player on the button. He is a younger, skinnier, most likely Spanish pro who looks like he can multi-table over 100 tables on PokerStars, so this guy obviously has some moves. He can be 3-betting light here, so I don't mind a fold. I don't really like a call, but I think maybe a 4-bet could be good. I glance over at his stack, and he has about $1,800 left, which is pretty short stack actually. It's less than 100 big blinds given the fact that the straddle is on, so I think if I'm going to 4-bet here, I think a jam is the best thing. I can put a lot of pressure on his ace-queen, his ace-jack, maybe his king-queen suited, all of his pocket pairs that aren't bigger than queens, so I tank for a while and decide to go for it. I rip it all in here with ace-5 as a bluff.
And I have to be there the whole time.
I'm gonna move right here.
Okay.
A little bit on.
Well, then I only get to drive home a little bit and then come back.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy. I don't think it works.
We shove all in, and he snap folds. We end up getting this one through with ace-5. Feeling pretty good so far. 2 for 2 on this session on a Friday night. Next hand here, I have king, queen, offsuit. There's a raise to $60 from the action player from the first hand. I make the call, the button calls, and all the blinds end up calling as well. So we go 6 ways to a flop, which comes out queen high. It checks over to the initial raiser, the action player from under the gun +1, who puts out a c-bet, but he only makes it $115. And on this board, given the c-bet sizing, I feel like I'm going to have the best hand here a lot of the time, but I don't want to call and let other players in with just single pair hands, gut shots, and straight draws and stuff like that. So I put in a raise right away. I raise it up here to $300 with my top pair. I think a raise is good here just because the action player from under the gun +1 has been playing a ton of hands. He's also been raising a lot of trash cards like 7-3 suited or Jack deuce suited. So I feel like on this board, I'm going to have the best hand. I want to raise and go in position here. I make it $300, folds all the way back over to him who makes a call. 3 of hearts on the turn, now bringing in a heart flush draw. My opponent checks, and I think I want to be betting this turn a lot of the time, and I'll probably check back the river unless I improve to a queen or a king, so I settle on a bet of $475. The under the gun +1 player now takes a while with his decision. He counts out $475 in his stack with about $3,000 left. It looks like he wants to raise, and then he eventually ends up making the call. I'm feeling a little bit weird about the situation, not sure if he's slow playing or trying to trap me. We're going heads up to the last card, which is a 9. Not the best river because it can improve my opponent to 2 pair, and Jack 10 gets there with a straight, and it gets even worse when my opponent now leads out. The under the gun +1 player leads for $1,100. This is actually a very, very nasty spot. I don't think many players would be using this river card as a bluff card. It's not really a scare card. I raised a flop and bet the turn, so my opponent can expect me to have a pretty strong hand here. So for him to lead out for $1,100 with a bluff just feels like a suicide play. When I'm facing a tough decision where I think my opponent could potentially be bluffing, I try to think of what kind of hands he could be bluffing with, and I can't really think of many. I guess he could potentially turn some 10x or jack x hands like 8-10, maybe 9-10 into a bluff here, trying to rep a straight. He could potentially be blocker betting here with queen jack or queen 10, but that seems very unlikely. We just lose to a ton of hands. We lose to all 2 pairs, all the weird combos he's playing. We lose to Jack 10 for a straight. We lose to Ace Queen. We lose to Pocket Kings. We lose to Pocket Aces. With all that being said, I don't think I can call here. Last week I called off a major, massive bet with just 1 pair, and this week I am not going to do it. I tank for over 2 minutes and make the fold. Definitely a tough spot there. Not a fun hand to play. We end up adding $2,000 in our stack before the next hand. We have pocket 5s, raise it to $75 over a straddle. There's a call from the cutoff. The small blind calls, and the under the gun straddler makes a call. So going 4 ways to the flop. Sometimes I joke with you guys about the flop, but this time I am not lying. When the board comes out, 5, 5, 7 rainbow, flopping quads, that is what I'm talking about. Let's get some of our money back. When it checks to me, I feel like I have to slow play here, given the fact that I have the board crushed. I check, and the cutoff checks behind. The turn card is the 8 of clubs, and now the under the gun straddler puts out a bet. He bets $105, and this particular player just hero called down with like second pair, not even an orbit ago, so he seems like a pretty sticky player, so I decide to bump it up here. Let's play a big pot with quads. I make it $325, folds all the way back over to him. There is definitely merit to slow playing here and just making the call. However, there's still a lot of hands I can call my raise. If my opponent has a flush draw, a straight, a full house, he's definitely not going to be folding, so I'm okay with raising it up here. Unfortunately, it folds back to him. He says he just has a pair, and he ends up folding. Of course, we've got to show the pocket 5s for the vlog and the table, flopping quads for what seems like maybe the 2nd or 3rd time here in 3 weeks in Dallas. That is it for our session tonight. We end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage, and cashing out for the night. Alright guys, that is it for this one. A 2-part poker vlog for you guys. Wednesday night playing 5-10-20 at the Texas Card House live stream. Didn't get too much going on the stream, and then we did play the biggest pot of my life. Aces for a $13,600 pot. I really thought I was going to win that one. I thought I was up against Pocket Kings or Ace Queen. Ended up chopping that one up. Biggest pot I've ever played. And then for tonight's session, Friday night, playing 5-10-20 as well. Kind of a boring night. Couldn't get too much going. No big pocket pairs. No big premium hands pre-flop. Played that one hand with King Queen. We folded for a while. Then we flopped a set of 5s. That was nice. Not really sure how I feel about my turn raise with the set of 5s, but I just decided to go for it. If the guy's got something, he might call. If he has a draw, he might call. So don't hate it. Ended up in the game for $6,000, out for $5,500, so lost about $500 this session. Not too bad, just the normal swings here at those bigger stakes. So one thing I have spoken about in the vlog in the past is moving up in stake levels and having to deal with the difference in games. So if you're a 1-2 player, you're going to have a wide variety of games to choose from. That's the biggest stake level in all of these card rooms or casinos. You're going to have 5, 6, 7, 8 different games to choose from for 1-2. So if one table is bad, you just move over to the next one. At 2-5, maybe it's a little bit smaller. Maybe they have 3 tables, 4, 5, 6 tables at 2-5. So if one table is bad, you can switch. But as you get up to the higher stakes of 5-10 plus, 5-10-20, 10-25, those kind of games, it really kind of narrows the player pool. It gets a lot smaller. There's not as many games running, and sometimes there's only one game. And I kind of struggle with the fact of playing a bigger game that's not as good or playing a smaller game with more fishier action players. So it's kind of tough for me. I'm really not sure what the best thing is. I'm playing a game that is 4 times bigger, 5-10-20, but the players are better and there's not as much action that might be on a 2-5 game. If I'm playing a 2-5 game, the game is 4 times smaller, but there might be more action players, so it's kind of tough. I actually don't know the answer there. I don't know what's better. My hourly is about the same at both stake levels, so I'm not sure if it's better to just drop back down and play 2-5 if the game is a little bit more action, even though it's smaller. But if the game's big, I like to play big games. I like to play deep stack. If it's 5-10-20, that's great. I like to play those kind of games. So I don't know. For now, I'm going to keep playing the 5-10-20 and see what happens. So hope you guys liked this 2-part vlog here. I am enjoying my time in Texas, even though it's cold. I love Texas Card House. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, come to Dallas, check it out. It's a great place to play poker. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, hit that like, subscribe, comment down below, and until next time, I'll see ya.